Hello, friends. We're back again to discuss True Detective, The Night Country, Season 4, Episode 4. Here with the crew. We'll go around the table, around the room, whatever. Alex, will you start us off?
Yeah, my name's Alex. I'm trying to be an author. I have one book called The Healer, which I'm currently querying. So if there's any agents out there that haven't read it yet, you can find me on Twitter as A Frog in Time.
And
Jared.
I'm Jared. I'm on the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel, and I'm also on the Page Chewing forums, and you can check out Creative Crossroads on there for my blog, pagechewing.com.
And Anthony.
I'm Anthony Self. On the Page Tuning forums, I've got a YouTube channel called Horrible that plays mainly with indie horror games, and have a few books on Amazon.
Just a few. And Chris.
Just a couple.
Yeah, just a couple.
My name's Chris Mullen, sometimes YouTuber, sometimes appear on other people's channels talking about books and movies or whatever else comes up. And I'm also on the Page Tune forums, and I agree with Alex. You know, should definitely give The Healer a read. If
Yes, yeah, you should.
if you haven't yet. If everybody's here and hasn't read it, you'd definitely should.
Yes, should read.
Thank you.
So this is probably my least favorite episode so far. And Chris, I have a feeling I know where you're going with it. I want to see if I'm right, because I have a feeling you disliked it as much, if not more, than I did.
Well, this is quite interesting because I seen a bit of discourse before I actually watched the episode this week, with a lot of people saying, I am done with this shit. This is absolutely going nowhere. It's going further down this kind of like nonsense mess. And so I went into watching the episode with that kind of framing in mind, going, oh, I'm going to hate this because this is everything that I do. And I have to say, I actually find more answers in it, I think, than most. I actually at least see a coherence in some way of this actually going together in embracing the supernatural bit of it, at least somewhat, at least from one character's point of view, or one side of the story, which, if nothing else, is something. Because if it hadn't have done what it's done with Navarro's character, which I'm sure we'll get to towards the end of this episode, I think I would have been phenomenally frustrated as another episode of them running about this dark town with no light, kind of turning up in places and either nobody's there or they get there and don't show you what's going to happen. Which is like, oh, we're 4 episodes in, there's only 2 to go, gotta give us something better than that. But I maybe it was the framing from which I watched it, but I actually didn't mind this at all. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than episode 3, which was exactly what I described that I thought this was going to be more of.
I'm sure we'll get into theories, but I have a theory that I'm pretty confident what the whole thing is about, but we'll get to that later. Yeah.
Intriguing.
That's a bold statement.
Pretty confident.
What did everybody else think?
What about everyone else? Yeah.
Well, I did some research into Salal because I thought, I've heard that before somewhere. It's been bugging me ever since they first mentioned it. And I have heard it before. It's an island in the Antarctic created by Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, right. Yes.
In a book called something. The narrative of what's his name? Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket.
That
That's
just
the
didn't
book.
rough the tongue. Dear God.
It rolls off very easily, yeah.
I can hear someone furiously typing on the keyboard now, trying to find some... That's Chris.
It was also then another book, I can't remember the name of that one either, written by Jules Verne, which is set 11 years later,
Right.
but also involves the same island with natives that pretend to be nice and then ambush you and steal all your stuff. And a giant sphinx. Bizarrely.
So have you formed a more working theory then as well, Alex, of what you think's going on? Without revealing what it
I'm
is
still
necessarily
going.
yet. Ah, that's good. Your gas.
I'm still.
They're all...
Yeah, and I am going to claim a point for predicting the first death. Even if she has still got a tongue, I did predict it.
Oh, Navarro's sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, yeah, I mean, looking at this episode as a whole, I kind of felt like what I said last time was like I wanted more answers in this episode. I was hoping they didn't throw more curveballs at us, and we did get that in the respect of a new character turning up, Otis.
Yes.
So as soon as that kind of appeared, I was sitting there going, oh man, they're going to throw more characters at this now at this stage. They haven't really divulged more into the kind of answers as opposed to more questions. And with only 2 more episodes to go, I'm feeling a little bit cynical that the whole supernatural element, and there's a lot of supernatural elements in this episode, that it won't be wrapped up in a nice neat bow, and I didn't think it would be. I think this series, I mean, you can only look back at the first series and you can tell, okay, this was very grounded, very realistic, very gritty in that respect, but there were very subtle influences of like supernatural. This has gone balls out supernatural.
Yeah.
And we see that at least 3 times in this episode. One with the orange again making an appearance. 2 with Navarro seeing ghosts or specters or ethereal creatures. 3 with at the end, you know, having her see this, that, and the other, and like, we'll get into that, I'm sure. But it just to me now feels a little bit like, how are they going to rein it back from that supernatural element? And part of me loves the fact that they've gone this way, but also another half of me is really kind of sitting there going, we just need to answer a few questions now. And I felt this would have been the episode to do that, and it didn't really for me. I guess, you know, there might be 2 more episodes, you know, and we'll find out maybe this, that, and the other, but there's gonna essentially be more plot holes. And the thing that really irks me now at the moment is down this, from the initial investigation into the missing scientists that they discover, it's now become about NEK. And it's like, well, there were scientists that have gone out. That seems to be like a more of a subplot now than anything else. And that's kind of irking me a little bit, because they're bringing more. It's like an Agatha Christie thing where they're bringing more deaths and more red herrings and more things to kind of like dupe the audience, rather than say, like, look, we're going down this road and we're going to see what happens. Have at you, sort of thing, you know?
Wow. So I realized that I realized I got a revelation about myself, that I don't theorize when I watch TV shows. I'm very much a wait and let it happen type of viewer.
Malazan ruined you, Jared.
Maybe, yeah. You might be right about that. But I was, the first half of this episode, I was a little discouraged, and I was getting. It was actually kind of depressing. The episode, there's quite a few sad parts. And then of course the polar bear shows up, and I'm like, all right, there's my polar bear. The significance of that, I'm still, that seems almost supernatural too, in a way, that this animal just, you know, happens to show up with what's her name, almost running into it on a
Danvers,
Danvers on a drunken drive, which, you know, is a little conveniently apropos to her whole situation, with the with the way her husband and son went out, and her with the polar bear stuffed toy there. So that was, even though the bear was fun, it kind of was. It seemed to be thrown in there just to have fun. I guess I don't really see the whole tie-in yet. As far as, is that going to be something supernatural, or is that just there for to have a polar bear? But and then but we did have the I can't remember names. Navarro's sister,
Julia,
do the same thing with her clothes, stack them neatly, and go out on the ice just like the scientists did. We haven't seen her actual body yet to know if there's going to be like the same, damage, tearing out the eyes or whatever those scientists were doing. So it's a correlation to the scientists, but whether or not we're going to see that same, is she hearing the same call they did? That's the question, I guess.
One thought. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say one thought that did strike me with that polar bear when he was breathing on the window was that he was then going to reach up with a cloth and just wipe it off a bit and then ask for some loose change.
And maybe offer her a Pepsi, or a Coke,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola, yeah. Holidays are coming, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a question too. They brought up this place called the Dredges. Was that brought up before? Because I did not remember them.
No, this is a new kind of area as well, sort of thing, where they brought up the dredges. When it first came up, it was a little bit like, where is this place? What is this place? What's going on here?
Yeah.
There was no... I mean, I think, I can't remember if it was you, Chris, or you, Alex, that mentioned the lighthouse, and we actually do get to see the lighthouse in this episode.
Yeah.
But the dredges is like a new thing, and once again, that was another aspect that I was like, so you're bringing up a new location now. This is obviously where I'm assuming they used to oil, or where we've seen the boats in the sea. So are the dredges the kind of area where they used to oil from? That's what I kind of got from the kind of machinery that looked like some kind of pre-fixture oil rig in the kind of frozen sea there. It just seemed to me another kind of aspect of like, we've got a new location now in this small town. And I want to ask you guys, pardon me, the lighthouse in itself in the small town of Ennis that seems to be, I thought like a kind of therapeutic sort of mental facility is a bit of a stretch in this kind of small town. I don't know. It looked very kind of, not new age isn't the way I'm thinking about it, but like, would you have that in that kind of place, in that kind of town, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen places like that in in a heavily populated area around where I live, but it makes you're bringing some good points, because I'm wondering how small is this small town? Where it has this kind of facility, and where these new places keep popping up that we haven't heard about before, and so that was a question that I have for myself.
Because there were a little... Sorry, go on, Alex.
I was going to say, if it is based on Utqiagvik, or Barrow as it used to be called, then the population in 2023 was 4,383.
Yeah, that's tiny.
But it doesn't necessarily preclude that it's a bigger area, though, because, like, if we're saying that there is a mine, right, you would suspect that the town grew up around the industry of the mine, like, that's literally where it came from. But the dredges bring up the idea that there was an alternative source of either whether it's oil. I had actually taken it to be, it was just free fishing, to be perfectly honest, at that stage. But whatever, it would say that there's an alternative industry there at some stage, and the mine and this dredges place that seems out to sea must be at least geographically distant. I mean, because one would certainly interfere with the other one if that was the case. So the town must be somewhere in the middle then, or around that, or that it spreads out geographically from one point to another of some way. Maybe that's what it's kind of there to indicate, is that it isn't just tiny, it is large. But you're right, like there's an awful lot of driving and moving around the town from place to place, and everywhere seems like it's been abandoned for about 100 years.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I could get the fact that the rig, the oil, the dredges might be, 15 miles outside of town over there somewhere or something like that, and that makes sense. But
I mean, abandoned that, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I've just looked it up, sort of thing. Like, dredging is an actual term in terms of like clearing a bed of a harbour, a river, or other water by scooping out mud, weeds, and rubbish with a dredge. So
Right, okay.
that's the kind of technical term for
We're
it,
all
I
wrong.
guess, yeah. But that in itself, like the whole Julia thing, didn't really sit well with me, to be honest with you. I don't know if you want to talk about this later, Steve. If we want to go through the episode first
go
and
for
then
it.
get into Julia. So, Navarro brings her sister, who's had in the last, had a bit of an episode in this episode. She's kind of walking out. Danvers sees her walking out, taking off her clothes, brings her to Navarro. Navarro brings her to the lighthouse, and there's this kind of very poignant shot where you see her going down the hallway. Navarro's like looking off, and then the next sort of minute, she's out of the facility, and it's like, I know they're meant to be sort of saying like this is not a very the guy, when she comes in, all guns are blazing, and says like to the receptionist, like, what are you doing? How can people just walk out of here? And she's like, well, it's a voluntary system. That didn't really ring true with me. It's like, it was like, okay, but surely you don't just let people walk in and out. And then you had the kind of second thing where some random person calls her up and says, yeah, we found your sister in the sea, I'm sorry. It's like, how did they find her in the middle of the sea? In the middle of the whatever? Like, who was out there looking? Was it Clark? Did Clark turn around and radio it in?
well, you said it was the Coast Guard.
The Coast Guard, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it just seemed very,
Convenient.
yeah.
Yeah,
How did they know who it
timing.
was so quickly?
Yeah.
yeah.
So there were little things like that where now I'm feeling, I'm not going to say lazy writing, but I feel like there's convenient plot points going on now just to kind of further the plot along. And whether that was a kind of catalyst for potentially Navarro breaking down or seeing the spirits again and, becoming one with the town in terms of the kind of madness that's going on, potentially. Who knows? But yeah, it didn't really flow well with me, that part.
Yeah, and the hospital didn't even know that she left. So if they didn't know that she was gone, for them just to happen upon her body within a couple of hours, I guess. It's hard to tell time because it's always dark. So you don't really get a sense of time, how much time has passed, but it didn't seem like that long when it passed. So she leaves, she walks to this abandoned area where she was last episode of the episode before in the cold. She walks by herself all the way over there. She undresses, she walks out into the sea, and someone just happens to find her, picks her up, identifies her, notifies Navarro that it's her sister within a couple of hours. It seems a little, I don't know, like a little quick.
I mean, you could argue she's at the lighthouse, right? And the metaphor is not going over our heads that, a lighthouse predominantly is to kind of give light to the sailors at sea to kind of ward them off from the rocks and everything. Yeah. And at the end of the episode, she's walking towards the darkness. And then Otis at the end says, we're all in the night country now. And it's like, okay. So, although we know that, like, this is Christmas Eve, right?
Yeah.
So is it 7 days, 8 days that they're in the dark? I did feel like there was that kind of Peter Griffin moment of like, no, he said the thing. It's Night Country. We've said the thing on the title. So there is that element of there is the element of like, okay, yeah, we're Clark's gone back down to hide, so we're assuming, and we've kind of jumped ahead a little bit here because obviously Navarro and Danvers go back to the teacher professor guy to get the maps of like the under ice caves, which now seems to be like some kind of weird school trip thing where people can go and find out about the dinosaurs. What? What's going on? It's like, what were these caves? Am I the only one who kind of felt that was a little bit kind of left field, or what are your guys' thoughts on that? Because they go to the guy and they're like, hey, we need to get maps. And it's like, maps of what? Are these underground tunnels? Did we know about these before? Or they just come and, oh, yeah, they're all underground tunnels and you can see the fossil bones and everything. So this is like an attraction, right, to people. That's what I got from this.
Well, he said that they closed it off. It was really dangerous and they closed it off. But I guess people used to go there. But it's another spot. Like another area thrown in into the mix here, on the downside of the story here. Like all this stuff seemed like it should have been introduced a lot earlier if they were gonna use it later.
Even if it was like a throwaway comment in, like, you've had like 4 episodes now, you could have had like just a throwaway comment of, hey, remember little Timmy when he went to the dredges? Oh, yeah. Something like that. Something simple. Just would have been a little bit more like, what we're being introduced to these new environments now. And the same thing with like the underground ice tunnels that no one ever really knew about until now. And it's like...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was waiting for one of you guys to tell me, oh, don't you remember in episode 1? But...
Yeah. It's not me.
Now all I can think of is, what's that one-eyed polar bear? Little Timmy's lost in the ice caves. Okay, let's get a search party together.
Well, that's the question as well. Do you think the polar bear, we've seen throughout all the episodes these kind of one-eyed manifestations of whatever. Like we've had the protester, we saw the girl with the protester, she had a sort of patch in her eye. We've seen Danvers' son, they were doing the kind of peekaboo thing with the one eye. Mm-hmm. We've seen the polar bear. From Danvers' perspective, she's seen it. Navarro's seen the polar bear. Do you think the polar bear, because they have this conversation, don't they, midway through the episode where Navarro's talking about spirits and Danvers is very much like, no, dead is dead, don't believe in anything. Are we being led to presume that Danvers' son is the embodiment of this polar bear? Or do you think this polar bear is a guiding light for Danvers and Navarro, and that's the shared connection that they have to bring them together?
It definitely appears that the polar bear is linked to her son in some way. Like the kind of, what are you doing holding on to this? I don't need this, I'm throwing this out the door. That whole of the toy, and the fact that it appeared in the crash when she was kind of at her wit's end, is almost like a writing force or a kind of guiding light, a bit like you said, Tony, in so far as, right, get yourself together here or something to that effect. I don't think anybody thinks that it's actually there. Even though it does breathe in the window, which kind of makes it seem like it's a fucking thing. I think a lot of the things that we've talked about here set up the fact that these visions are real to these people. Whether it's been caused by the gas or whatever it is that Alex has been postulating about for a while, these are actual things that are manifesting in the world that aren't just individuals being crazy. They are certainly a thing. Even how Danvers goes to Navarro and says, you've seen something, whereas if she could say yes, Navarro, then Danvers could say, well, I see things as well, but the two of them can't cross that line yet because we're only episode 4, but that feels where that's going in some way, and how a lot of the decisions that people are making in the town that seem to be a bit crazy and a bit aloof and a bit out there are linked to the fact that they all see these visions and that they are all kind of guided by this almost unreliability of their day-to-day lives of what's happening. Which for me was the bit that I kind of went, right, this is everybody. This isn't just one person. It was the same with the orange. The orange, I don't actually think is there. We kind of postulated that what does the orange mean? Yeah. But if the orange actually isn't there and it's just another manifestation or another vision that kind of they see all the time, then the explanation from that comes from there's something affecting all these people and what they see all the time.
The thing is, I mean, I think the orange is because Navarro's seen it. And in the previous episode, she had it while she was on the ice, and she threw it into the darkness. And then in this episode, we see Julia with the orange rolling out from beneath the bed before she sees her mother. So I'm thinking that, yeah, the visions or the what they're seeing is they're related because they're sisters, obviously. And I will be... The revelation of the orange will probably be some kind of really small thing that their mother used to give them oranges or something when they were young.
Yes.
Something like that. And that's their shared trauma experience thing. That's why they see this orange. I did think it was... My takeaway from it was when Navarro had the orange while she was on the ice on her own and then threw it into the darkness. Was that symbolic or a metaphor for her sister walking out in this episode into the darkness? But then the orange rolls back. I don't know. I'm sure we will probably see I'm hoping we'll see some kind of resolution to the orange because I want to find out about the damn orange.
Well, there's two things. Firstly, clearly her sister rolled back on the tide. And secondly...
the icy tide.
Yep. And secondly, it's obvious what the orange is. It's Christmas. You get an orange in your stocking if you're good.
Really?
So, something tells me Tony will not be happy with that.
You are absolutely right, Chris. You are absolutely right. I'm not happy with that answer.
Me either, because
Somebody stuffs it in cloves.
I've never gotten an orange, so I don't know.
You either get a coal or an orange in your stocking, yeah.
Oh, really?
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe that's more of a UK
Might be.
type thing, but... Yeah. Or is it... It's Clementine, isn't it?
I don't know. I always just thought it was some sort of orange fruit with pitted skin.
If somebody threw a clementine at my head, I'd be going, see that fucking orange, you can take it back.
So another thing is, what's the deal with Rose?
Rose.
Why is she there?
Rose.
Good question. I did like her line, though. It's a little quieter here, mostly except for all the fucking dead.
Yeah, that was a good line.
But that's a good question.
Yeah.
Once again, I think personally, I'm getting more cynical now as the episodes go on, and I think originally she was not a Deus Ex Machina sort of thing to kind of find out where the scientists were, because in the first episode, she was the one that got the vision from the dancing Rust's dad sort of thing. I think now she is just basically there to sort of manifest the kind of Rust's colloquialisms from the first series. Like she can be vague and she can say this random shit, right? And people will be like, it could be Rust's mum. We don't know yet, but we have this kind of character who is in the periphery, who's in the kind of tertiary sort of way that can just say mystical sort of things and just have no relevance to the plot whatsoever, but just give a little bit to the kind of protagonists of the story. So it's Navarro that always comes and sees her, right? And, why... Yeah, like, you're right, Steve. Like, what's... Apart from the very beginning, that she leads the detectives to the scientists who are in the ice, and she's the one who sees the kind of spirit in full form and is quite cool with it and says, like, what's the thing that she says, the sentence about you can see spirits or you can be mentally unwell, but don't differ the two in that respect. But also at the same time, yeah, she's on Christmas Eve. I personally felt when I saw that segment when Navarro was coming in, like she was waiting for the boyfriend's come back, like she was preparing this feast, like she was going to have some dalliance with a spirit later on in the evening. And I don't really see where her character's going to go or what kind of... She just feels to me as a kind of plot exposition dump where she can give one of the main characters some sagely advice in things that may or may not be supernatural, and then the main protagonist goes away and thinks about it and goes, well, okay, that could mean something, that may not mean something.
I mean, as a cop, with people disappearing, people walking into the cold, killing themselves, some walking into Rose, making a whole spread by herself, dressed up. That's like not a red flag for like a cop. Like, Rose, maybe you should get checked out. I mean, maybe we should let's have I'm concerned for you because this isn't normal. Like, this is kooky. So this is going to fit into my theory later that we'll get into, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I have... Oh, sorry, go ahead, sir.
Oh, I just said I think she's an interesting character because I liked her backstory. So I hope they do something more with her later on, but I guess we'll see.
So there's a theory that I read online, which I'll not go into because I think that actually might colour things. But in general, I'm watching TV shows, right? I have a theory about the level of actor who plays certain roles. And to me, right, you've got Jodie Foster's obviously, a lot of money's went to Jodie Foster in this TV series, right? Callie Reese is the first time actor, so she's not expensive. In fact, John Hawkes is probably the only other person that is known outside of this cast. And then you have these other two. Now, granted, they're both British actors, but they're both quite famous British actors. Fiona Shaw being one of them, phenomenally famous here, and Christopher Eccleston being the other one. You do not cast Christopher Eccleston and Fiona Shaw in these two roles unless there's a reason. There has to be a reason they're in here, even though Christopher Eccleston's accent is, frankly, I'm not even saying it's bad, it just doesn't fit his face, if you know what I mean. Although, something you brought up, I think, last week, it was the first time I think somebody acted on Jodie Foster's level in a scene in the entire thing, is when the two of them had a conversation. You could kind of feel, oh, these two people, there's a chemistry there beyond what's just on the script here, you know, or there's something else going on in the script. It was a really fabulous scene, actually, I think. So I am hanging a lot on both of these characters, the Fiona Shaw one and also the Christopher Eccleston, to bring something else to this. Again, this idea that Jodie Foster says to Eccleston's character is, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing here?
Well, it's interesting.
Repeatedly.
Yeah, Chris, it's interesting that you mentioned the so Captain Ted, Christopher Eccleston's character. There was one scene in this episode, apart from the watching Buddy the Elf, and I need to ask you guys what elf. There's got to be some kind of symbolism going on with Elf here, because we don't see it once, but we see it twice. We see Hank watching Elf, and we see Ted watching Elf. But there's that one scene where Ted is in Danvers' office, and he gets a little water jug, right? And he sniffs it before he puts it in the plant. And originally, I thought, oh, because he knows that Danvers maybe there's some part like with her drinking. But then you kind of think, well, maybe if he knows that the water's bad, you know, the whole thing about the water being bad and all that kind of stuff, and like, does he know more than what we're led to believe right now, in terms of like what's going on with the mining company, what's going on at the science station? And there's this kind of really subtext where Danvers is always saying to him, like, you know, oh, you just want me off the case, or you want me to transfer me somewhere else so you can take this on yourself. And he's like, no, I'm here to help you. And it's that classic, like we talked about earlier about the Scooby-Doo sort of thing, but there is that real Scooby-Doo element of, I'm here to help you, when he's got like a knife behind his back and is about to kind of plow it into her shoulder blades, you know, that kind of thing. So there's that element, yeah.
Are we saying at some point there's going to be a scene where Fiona Shaw's character, Agino, is going to be sort of like told that she's the one that's doing it all, and someone will say, but she couldn't have done it all on her own. No, she had help from Captain Jeff.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. And then Christopher Eccleston takes off his face, and we see that it was never his voice to start off with, and it all makes sense.
I mean, the plant's dead anyway. Look at that plant. Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, and he is very when Danvers tells him that they died before, or they didn't die of the cold, or what, right? When he's very well, just keep that under your hat. Like, don't. He wants to keep it all internal, doesn't he? He wants to keep it very much
close to the chest sort of thing in terms of how many people know what. So I do think that he's going to be the main bad at the end of this somehow. He's known about things that have gone down. In what way? Still don't really know. But yeah. We got to talk about poor Hank in this episode, by the way. I mean, we've known that Hank so far
yes, I had a question.
has been dragging his heels, but I'll be honest with you, my cold dead heart bled a little for him in this episode.
Right.
When he was standing there at the airport with his little bunny rabbit waiting for his future fiancée to come out, and she just was, and they did a rope-a-dope. They had the woman, the blonde lady, come out, and it was like, oh, it's not a scam. And then she just took up the thing, and I was like, Hank, my man.
I mean, that's what we were all expecting, right? That there wasn't a bride. Yep. I mean, I was disappointed.
Look at his poor face.
I actually wanted there to be an actual Russian bride.
But you know what really broke my heart was then when we go later on, when we go back to his kind of trailer house sort of thing, and he's got the champagne in the fridge, and he's got the rose petals on the bed. And I was like, oh, Hank, oh man. And then his son turns around and says, you didn't give her money, did you? And he just completely changes the subject. I'm coming to yours for Christmas, right? Oh no.
The thing is, it's I don't know if it's necessarily a clever bit of writing, but last week we were all convinced that it wasn't pure ineptitude on Hank's part. He was covering things up deliberately and being clever. And now we're right back to, well, he's just an idiot, isn't he?
A lonely idiot.
I don't know. I think, though, this might send him over the edge. If he wasn't, like, a little unnerving before, this might just be the emotional crack that just erupts into something else.
Yeah. Again, I look at it and go, what's the point of writing this part of the storyline? Like, why put this in? If you were going to... Like, there's lots of red herrings in True Detective, but this isn't anything to do with the case at all. This is literally just a character thing. So why include this whole bit if it isn't going to have some sort of effect on his character? Either he knows something and hasn't been getting involved with the case and been distracted by this relationship he's having, and now that that's over, he'll become part of the case, or there's something else going on here that he knows about, like he's been working with the captain or otherwise in the background over the years, etc., and that's going to come to the fore. So keeping him sort of as a character in the background that is sort of prominent within the police department, but that isn't doing anything, that ultimately will be coming in and doing that, and that is also happens to be the father of the other prominent police person within the story, because there only seems to be 2 people working in the entire department, apart from Navarro outside.
I did see it. I did hear a theory that Danvers is catfishing him out of revenge. I don't know if I buy that. But there has been a few scenes where she's on her phone and someone's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm on Tinder or whatever." So the theory is that that she's messing with him, like she's catfishing him.
Geez.
That's completely possible for sure. Yeah, she's a piece of work. Like, there's no doubt.
Oh yeah, she is. Yeah. I found it amazing.
It was a great scene with her standing outside. She was standing outside the house with of the ex-boyfriend and not turning around just to ask the questions. So that was actually really funny. Yeah. That whole scene.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I find it amazing that she's able to wrangle all these people to do this work on Christmas Eve, and basically interfere with the rest of their lives just to do what she wants. And it just made me wonder how much power does she have to be able to, or how much charisma does she have to be able to wrangle that kind of loyalty out of people. Navarro just lost her sister, but she's still focusing on the case, and of course the son there, who has a whole family at home, who he's completely blowing off, and You wonder how much that's going to play into, because I guess the next episode would be Christmas, right? So how much is that going to play? That the things are going to happen on Christmas Day. That's going to be a total mess. You know, it's going to be a total mess. The Christmas Day is not going to go smooth, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, the turkey's in the bin for a start. So.
Yeah, she threw the turkey out. I was like, what a waste of turkey.
And I think we had more with his with Peter and Kayla, his wife. They added in some like personal, like you know, I ruined your life. You never wanted, like,
Right. Yeah.
why? Like, what is this all? Where is this all going? Because they all seem alone. I think they even talk about how lonely everyone is, and I think that's why I can see a place like the lighthouse being a thing in a place like this, because it's in an isolated area. They're off to this. They're kind of on their own. Everyone's a little depressed because of the weather and the lack of sun. So I kind of get it, but yeah. I have thoughts.
Does anybody else think that the ice caves, if you follow them through, will eventually bring you out underneath Salal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got to be connected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that.
I'm trying to think what else. Oh, and her daughter vandalizing the front of the mine. I love how they have Teslas in front.
Well, I was just thinking, like, you know, her daughter, like, although she's like the chief of police and everything like that, right? Her daughter gets away with murder in this series. Her mum's like just trying to do the best for her, and I get that, okay? But like, there's a point where you've just graffitied across the Silver Sky mining facility. Her mother and I guess the CEO that we saw before that had the ice rink and everything like that, she's like, I want to press charges. And it's like, okay, sure. You can't do that. She's my kid. Get away. And then the daughter's so just, I don't know if this is just me showing my age of, like, you know, ungrateful teenage kids, but like, seriously, it's like your mum just got you out of a pickle right there. And she's just like, no, I'm getting out of here now. I'm going. Bye.
Nope, they don't care. They don't care. Trust me.
Yeah. They just go, get off my back. You're always on my back.
Yeah. You're never on my side.
You don't understand. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, I know I banged your husband, but can you let my daughter off? Like, can we just kind of like forget about this?
It's Christmas. Yeah. Everyone forgives at Christmas, right? Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Everybody gets an orange.
I'm not sure anybody actually wants the orange in this one.
No. It's not good. I'll throw out the speculation or the kind of ideas that have been thrown out there, and it's again about Navarro and their visions. There are a couple of characters in the show that only Navarro ever meets. He's the only one that ever talks to him. One is the what seems to be the boyfriend. Only you ever see him in isolation by himself, and he seems to fill a need for her. And the other one is the Rose character. Nobody ever in the show interacts with Rose apart from Navarro. And you're right. That scene where she appears in the house and it's kind of a bit. It's a bit like a scene out of another movie, if you know what I mean. When she walks into that house and the way she's dressed and the lighting and all that kind of stuff, it is almost dreamlike, that situation. Whereas you could say that it's an info dump, and that would be correct, but it'd also be like an info dump or a formulating of Navarro's thought process, if you know what I mean, in terms of the way she processes information.
Didn't Danvers address her on the first episode when she did she go like, hey, Rose, and then just walked on?
Apparently not. People have went back and checked it and says she actually literally just walked straight past her if she's not really there. The only thing that has been tied to it is the the only bit that's tied to it is that Peter says that Rose called in the bodies Now, it could be that Rose. It could just be a person called Rose that called in the bodies. That's the only other person that seems to have any dealings with her. But again, this idea, we know now Navarro sees things, and sees things quite a lot. She's actually seen this vision of the dead body pointing at her and kind of growling at her in 2 episodes now. That's like almost like a reoccurrence of that. You see, it's similar to her sister. She's calling it a curse, but she may have either multiple personalities or otherwise, in terms of dealing with these things and dealing with the stress of her life. So thought I'd throw that out because I don't know whether I totally believe it, but it is an interesting side take to explain a lot of her kind of aloofness and then, you know, cooperative at one point and then dealing with thing and then writing herself. It's a way to explain a lot of her character traits.
It would tie in quite well with the whole fact that when she's saying to her, like, you know, don't get confused between seeing spirits and mental illness kind of thing. And if she's got this family hereditary thing of, you know, well, there's one as well. They say Julia like has schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, and something else. And I was like, wow, that's quite a few things to be dealing with there. And then Navarro seems to, like, in the last half of the episode, seems to accept the fact that, you know, it took my mother, it's taken my sister, and now it's after me. So she feels like this curse is after her. So that would, in theory, kind of work well, that like she's the only person who see. I'm always one of those kind of people who, like, whenever you see those kind of films where like there's only one interaction between two people, and it's like, well, that's because that person's a ghost. Oh no. it does have that credibility to it. Yeah.
Only thing that might dispel part of that, and it could still be passed off as a vision, I suppose, especially if you take it in a wider context, but I'm assuming it was Quavik that left the SpongeBob toothpaste on her doorstep.
Had to be.
The reason I say that could be taken as a vision as well is because I'm assuming the same person left the mini Christmas tree, which may have been a metaphor for the bigger Christmas tree at the end when she saw her sister.
Oh, yeah. But again, there was that idea that mental illness and that kind of split personality prepares yourself for events or something, or deals with tragedy, or deals with things that are happening in a certain way for herself. But I'm very interested to see the next episode start, because at the end of this episode, you're not sure whether Navarro's sitting scared or whether she's sitting like a trance, or whether this is maybe even somebody else. You know what I mean? That we don't know that actually at that stage.
Well, she had the bloody ear, didn't she? So that could have been just a kind of consequence from her being beaten by the guys. Like maybe she has concussion or something. And I think they're going to lean into that quite heavily. You know, the fact that maybe she's seen ghosts and spooks and stuff, or maybe she was just, you know, beaten half to death. And maybe she's gotten concussion, so maybe her brain isn't working the right way that it usually is. So I think, I mean, you saw the scientists as well, like they had blood coming out of their ears when they were discovered on the ice originally.
That's right.
There could be an element. I think that's what the programmers, writers are wanting the audience to believe, is that it could be either or. We'll see, I guess, in the next episode.
Any theories?
Do you have one, Steve? Come on.
Yeah, we need to hear this theory now.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is my theory. So the series has been really the series has been really deliberate in showing us like faucets running, Ted smelling the water, dumping in the dead plant, people brushing their teeth, talking about the like stillborn babies. A lot of focus on water, drinking, dishes, washing their dishes. So mercury poisoning causes what's called erethism, also known as Mad Hatter syndrome. It's a neurological disorder which affects the whole central nervous system. It leads to irritability, low self-confidence, depression, apathy, shyness. With prolonged exposure, it can cause delirium. It can also cause hallucinations and suicidal tendencies. So, my theory is that they're going to tie this into season 1, and the whole what's the family name? The Tuttles. The Tuttles are. This is like an experiment. The Tuttles are running because there's this evil corporation that's going to poison this little small town, and it's like a collective, like a group hallucination, and they're all killing each other. Either there's one killer, or they're all taking turns killing each other, and this is what's causing the babies to be stillborns, is the mercury poisoning, because it also causes birth defects.
Interesting.
So yeah, it can also cause loss of hearing, bleeding from the ears and mouth, loss of appendages such as teeth, hair, and nails, poor memory, insomnia, nervousness, and dizziness.
All of which are symptoms we've seen so far.
Yeah.
So this is going to be...
That's good. Don't need to watch the last 2 episodes. That's
Yeah, I
worked
think we'll just go with that as the answer.
So I think they're all just hallucinating. I think they all have, from their past experiences and traumas, they're all seeing things. I do think Danvers was either driving or had some kind of hand in the death of her husband and son. That's guilt that's causing her to see this polar bear everywhere. So I don't know. I think it's going to be some kind of evil corporation kind of thing, is what I'm guessing.
Do you think maybe that the scientists in the facility had the poisoning like earlier, maybe, or first, and that's why they went nuts first? Or...
I think the Tuttles are involved somehow. I think that's who's cutting the power. Because we did find out that someone's cutting the power. It's not like the supernatural event.
Yeah.
So I think it's like it's part of their cult. They're trying to kind of like play around with it, and I don't know. The Tuttles are going to be involved somehow, and I really hoped it didn't go to this, but I do think it'll be like an evil corporation was behind the whole thing. But I might be wrong. That's just, I'm taking a shot.
It's pretty good.
I like it. It's a decent theory. For now, I'm going to stick with my hallucinogenic sour gas, because that does still just about fit the pattern.
Same thing.
As
Well, it actually does, because it is, it can also be caused by exposure to mercury vapors. So.
There you go. Yeah.
And the captain knows.
Very good. And the captain knows, indeed. Yeah. Like I said, I did feel like that scene where Danvers was wanting Navarro to admit that she was seeing things was key. It was like she was almost pleading with her. Just tell me that you see things, please. So that if she sees things,
we still
the two of them
don't
can admit
really
that
know
see
what's
things.
happened.
Yes.
Yeah, when they met up with Wheeler, we don't really know.
Oh, Wheeler, sorry.
Oh, well, I mean, Navarro saw a spirit, pointing. There's always the pointing.
That's right.
But we don't know if it was indeed the person who has killed Wheeler and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
the point and scream.
Oh, and the Otis character was wearing that jacket.
That's right, yeah.
What was that from again?
The jacket.
I remember.
So Clark took the jacket from Annie Kay,
Right.
the pink puffer, and I'm assuming the fact that Clark has been at the dredge and they know each other, and he's either given him the jacket or it was forcibly taken from him. The fact that Danvers is saying, like, where's Clark? And he was saying, he's down below now. He's in the dark country. Right. So, yeah, I'm kind of hoping in the next 2 episodes we're going to go down into the ice. We're going to find out it needs to start answering some questions now. I mean, really, there's so many threads. There's so many different plot threads that are intrinsically webbed like a spider's web that it needs to start to unravel a little bit, and we need to start knowing certain things. Unfortunately, I'm gonna go out there and say that it's not gonna do that in the whole. It's not gonna answer all the questions that we're looking for, and they're just going to be dismissed as, well, this was a red herring, or that was nothing to do with anything, and don't worry about it. But it's fine.
Excellent.
Any other ideas or guess? I am a little bit concerned that we only have 2 hours left. There's a whole lot to wrap up.
Yeah, that's my beef as well.
I'm sort of glad. I don't know if I could do 10 episodes of whatever this series is. Yeah.
I feel like we've been kind of hard on it. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's like it's like, I don't know, as a whole, I guess it's okay. I mean, it's not like I don't hate it, but
there's a lot of questions. Yeah, I mean the acting's great. I like it. Even I know we've been saying that Jodie Foster's kind of stealing the acting show, but I don't think the other actors are doing bad at all. I think it's been pretty well done. I like the setting and how a lot of the shots, a lot of the camera work. I like. It's nice to look at. As far as as far as it fits the setting and the darkness and all that stuff, all that stuff is pulled off very well. So it's not a bad show as far as the production and everything that's going into it. We can question the writing and the direction that a lot of stuff is going in, but it is a well-made show overall.
I think its main problem is the fact that it only really has the mystery going for it. If you think back, and I hate to do this actually, to go back to the first series, a lot of it was predicated on the fact that you could just watch Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson just sit in a car and talk back and forward philosophy for hours. The writing, and as you kind of allude to, Jared, it was on a whole other level in terms of the character relationships and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas this one only really has the mystery. It's hard to kind of keep it together. Like I say, everybody's sort of okay, but there is no real inter-character relationships being developed here. There's nothing really that you could sit, oh god, I'd love to see those two put together. Aside from, and this is the first time, between Christopher Eccleston's character, the captain, and Danvers, they're the only two that you could kind of put those two in a room together, and then you're going to have some good things happen. Everybody else is sort of, it's good, like serviceable, but they all have a job to do, is what it feels like in service of the mystery. So I think that's really where the difference between this and say first series or something comes from, is that it is singularly focused on that, and as Tony Acceptors led to it, is a lot to, if that doesn't go well, then your opinion of this series will be, oh god, this wasn't great, but if it goes well and they wrap it up nicely, it'll have a pretty strong effect, because as you say, a lot of the technical parts of it are very good.
Yeah.
From a plot level, it's literally been a lot of people running around in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess from a character standpoint, like, how have our characters changed at all? They're kind of all the same, like, so far. I mean, there's still 2 more episodes, so who knows?
Yeah, I think, like, with Danvers, Danvers for me is the most interesting character by far out of all of them. It's not just because of Jodie. I mean, obviously Jodie Foster brings it to the table, but from her analytical, logical self, I feel that now she's starting to kind of think that maybe, although she says dead people are dead, there is that kind of subtext of maybe she doesn't believe it, maybe she does believe in something else. And obviously with the one-eyed polar bear, although she hasn't seen the orange because that's Navarro's thing, there is this kind of bond between them that I think is maybe shoehorned in a little bit, perhaps. But I like the way that she's going, the way that she's taking on Peter as a kind of protege, as the kind of like the next Navarro, asking him the same questions, like, what's the next question? What's the next one? You're not asking the right question. Stuff like that. I love her character development, as well as the fact that, she's slept with most of the men in the town as well, and she doesn't really give a fuck. She's just doing it, Navarro as a character as well, like, you know, her main crux is her sister, and now that her sister's died, you know, I'm interested in to see how she's going to be reacting or acting in the next 2 episodes. Will that be a major factor in her decision making? Will that be something that we kind of come back to Wheeler? Hank, I'm just intrigued by Hank. Like, I think there's obviously something going on the surface. He has been a bit of a tertiary character, and, you know, his main thing has been the Russian bride, but I think there is stuff bubbling under the surface, under the pot for him. And I think with the most recent revelation that he knows he's been scammed will lead him to do some stupid things in the next couple of episodes. Peter as well, I know, like, with his wife, I don't really get that relationship. At the end of the day, if, you know, you are... How many people are dead? Like, in the last, like, 48 hours, there's been, like, 6 dead people. They've got the scientists. There's a connection to Annie Kay. I know there's that whole thing of, like, you know, don't bring your work home and everything, but the fact that he's always kind of... I don't want to say henpecked, but, like, it's like, oh, you're not here, you're never here. Yeah, because he's a cop, and he's, like, trying to make his way in, and he's good at what he does. Like, he was the one that brought Otis to the attention of Danvers, you know, and he's done a lot in the background. And I know he's always, like, there was actually one point in this episode where I thought he was going to die in this episode, like, because he was in the car, and because Danvers was drunk, and she was, like, calling him up and saying, you know, you have to go pick up Navarro. I was thinking, oh no, he's going to have some accident in the car or something before he gets there. So there is that element still that there's some danger lurking in the background of, you know, we don't know possibly who could be next to perish. But overall, I think the dialogue between some of the characters is really good. There's been some hokey lines, there's been some hokey dialogue. The whole supernatural element, I think they're leaning on it too much, and now it's becoming too much of a crux. And I think that's why a lot of people, in the first 2 episodes were great, were fantastic, and then after that it's dipped for me personally. And I think a lot of other people, I don't know if you've seen online, a lot of people was like saying the same sort of thing, that where is this going? It's almost like that kind of like they can't really, the identification of what this is meant to be, they couldn't really decide what it was. And this was obviously meant to be released before Christmas, and you can see that because it is Christmas in the episode, and they had to delay it and whatnot. I'm now thinking to my head, like in the back of my head, as I'm thinking, well, why did they delay it? Were there reshoots? Were there like edits that needed to be made? Were there some things that needed to be put, you know, to the side, or things that were deleted? There's probably a load of scenes that probably we're not going to see the light of day.
Yeah. But do you think that this, because this is 6 episodes, is strange. That's a strange amount. Do you think this was stretched out into 6 episodes, like it should have just been a movie? Or do you think they originally wanted to do more and they didn't like what was happening and they just cut a bunch out?
Well, 6 episodes isn't actually that strange in the UK.
Yeah, it's
really?
standard. Yeah. That's exactly it. I would say this
I mean,
is
HBO
they had a
there has
bunch
been
of...
some...
Yeah.
Because for, you know, HBO used to be 13, pretty standard, and then they started going a little lower over the years. But 6 is pretty strange for HBO. Yeah.
I get the sense that this was actually a lot more, and they were like, this is far too much padding, we need to kind of condense this down, we need to make it more, you know, there's a reason why every episode has, like, the last 5 minutes is this kind of like, ooh, oh my god, there's maybe a ghost here or not sort of thing. Maybe there was a lot of pacing previously on this, but yeah.
That's what I was wondering, if it was meant to be a slow burn, you know, originally, and then they just cut it down.
Did they cut all the answers out though? Because it's still a slow burn.
Yeah, it was kind of a slow. I guess we've learned a bit, I guess. Like, but after 6 hours, it seems like, I don't know. It's okay.
We need answers now.
Yeah.
We need answers. Yeah.
We do.
When you take it in context, we've only been watching it for 6 hours. But the Annie Kotok case was a few years before that, and they've only just found the crime scene.
It's true.
And they haven't actually got to the crime scene yet. They've just worked out where it is.
It's fair.
Well, anything else you guys can think of?
Did Tukak take a walk out onto the ice, or is he just scarpered so he doesn't have to answer any questions?
I think he's just...
He'll be back.
I don't know. Maybe he'll show up at the right moment. Without his gun, though,
With
it's...
everybody else. Him and Clark are having a party.
Yeah. They're attending a rave. They'll be back. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. For him not to take his gun or his boots, kind of gives the impression that he walked out into the ocean, into the cold.
Mm.
But
Another human popsicle.
yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, there's a couple more to go. I think this next episode comes out early because of the Super Bowl. I think
Yes,
a couple days
Friday.
early.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll get to it. So in the meantime, Alex, where can people find you?
It can be found on the pagechewing.com forum, or on Twitter or Blue Sky.
And Jared.
You can find me at my channel on YouTube, The Fantasy Thinker, where I talk about all kinds of fantasy literature of all sorts.
Nice. And Anthony.
You can find me on the Page Tuning forums. You can find me on the YouTube channel Horrible, and Go Chiefs.
Oh, no. We're not going to let you back now. I actually put money in the Chiefs because I think they're going to win, but I hate myself for it. We'll find out. Chris, where can people find you?
If only both teams could lose.
Yeah, okay.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Chris Mullen. You can find me in the Page Tuning forums.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Who to root for, but well, cool. So we'll talk to everyone next week, and hopefully we have answers. And if we don't, I think it'll be an interesting talk next week. We'll find out. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.